Fighters. Tonight, we have a fighter with us. Tonight, we have a good friend, Brian Games. I know Susie and I have known him for about 25 years. A lot of y'all have known him, maybe even longer than that. Brian works at the St. Clairsville Church in Ohio. He's got a beautiful wife, Amy, and two sons, Michael and Ben. And the thing that I could say about Brian, very simply, is Brian is that type of person that always thinks about others. And that is it's difficult to do. It's a selfish world that we live in. And so when you find somebody that instead of looking to his own needs, but looks to the needs of others, you want to be around that person. You want to listen to that person. You want to talk to that person. You want to find out what makes that person tick. So tonight, I give to you Brian Games, a fighter and someone who loves people. Brian, come on up, buddy.
I'm on. I didn't intend to say this because I had no idea who would be here next week. But I had the good fortune to work in the church with John Temple when I was here in Nashville. And John is exemplary. You can learn so much about the character of God from John Temple. In fact, I dare say part of why I approached my situation as positively as I could is because of John Temple's example. The man is godly. Well, it's so unbelievably good to be with you. I was invited to share with you my role in God's story of goodness. But before I do that, I need to share two passages that have taken new meaning in my life and the life of my family. They're passages which God has laid before us and planted deeply in our hearts. First is Romans 8:28, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who've been called according to His purpose. And James 1:17, every good and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change. God grows good things from the ashes of tragedy. No matter where you find yourself in life, look for the good to be sprouting up, 'cause it'll be there. It's all a matter of whether you're looking for it. Sure, people have said, that's easy for you to say. Things turned out good for you. But what if my story had ended differently? What if I wasn't here to speak? What if I had died? What if our family had lost our home? What if you fill in the blank? What then? Where is God then? I say to you, look for the good. God is the eternal good maker. Whether we recognize it or not, there is good sprouting from the ashes of tragedy. My story begins back in, well, I've got to tell you this, because it's on my mind. David said to me today, do you have a PowerPoint or anything I need to hook up? And I said no, because the attention I used to give to PowerPoint, I now have reassigned to saliva management. So what happens is it builds up in there. And I'm talking and I'm thinking, oh boy, I've got to swallow. I'm going to start slobbering. Swallow, swallow. And about 10-15 seconds later, my brain says, oh, he says swallow. I better do that. So if I pause and have a peculiar look, that's me trying to swallow. My story began in 2007 when I had a heart attack. And at that time, I also found out I was diabetic. Seems that diabetes had made my blood so thick that it grabbed the very thin film on the artery wall and folded it down to block it entirely. Once they cleared that out, they said, you're good to go. But they gave me strict marching orders. Don't eat anything that tastes good. No sugar. Only green vegetables. That's about all you were allowed. So I lost 120 pounds. I was training for a half marathon and playing a card game at my brother's house in January of 2012, one day after my 40th birthday. When the room started spinning, I lost the ability to move any part of my body except my eyes. But I could think clearly. I had what they call locked-in syndrome. I was thinking I was talking to people, but they only heard gibberish. The EMTs were crazy slow. Anyone who knows anything about strokes knows that there's a 3-hour window during which they can administer a clot-busting drug which will reverse the symptoms. Well, the EMTs took up an hour of my window. I got to Wheeling Hospital, bypassing our tiny little town hospital, and they were slow to diagnose. In retrospect, it was because brainstem strokes, such as mine, present very differently on tests. They don't look like normal strokes. Their inability to diagnose cost me the remainder of my window. About 5 hours later, they said I had a stroke, at which point we decided, not me, I was out of it. They decided to fly me to Cleveland Clinic, where I stayed for 11 days. The ICU doctor there pulled Amy aside. Well, not really. He waltzed into my room and told Amy, I need to talk with you. Well, she could tell from his tone it wasn't going to be good news, so she invited him into the hall, not wanting me to hear anything bad. And he said to her, you need to prepare yourself. If Brian survives, which is a very small chance, we've come to know about 7% of those who have locked-in syndrome live to tell about it. If he survives, the doctor said, he won't be going home. He'll be on a ventilator in a facility. And Amy kindly said to him something that challenges me every day of my life. She said to him, thank you, I know that's your medical opinion, but you don't know two things. You don't know the man in there and how hard he'll fight, and you don't know my God. Because the truth is, life rests in his hands. He said, well, I understand your opinion, but it's my job to tell you the likelihood. I walked in to the ICU at Cleveland Clinic less than a year later and met that doctor. And I'm pleased about that, 'cause it changed him, and it changed his approach. And I walked all through the ICU, and he paraded me around, meeting staff. that doctor now has a new appreciation for not destroying hope, but sharing the possibilities. So I was in Cleveland for several days. Most who have locked-in syndrome end up as a quadriplegic. Few regain any motor control. At Cleveland is where my first big step to recovery came about. I was on a vent, and a respiratory therapist who shared a faith and shared that faith with my kids said, "I think he can make a go of it. Let's let him see if he can fly." So they took me off the vent, and I did. I got a trach there. I had hallucinations from pain meds. I swore, in fact, I'm still not certain, but I swore the people at Cleveland Clinic have it in for the patients, especially in the basement. I would imagine them taking me down there, and there were all kind of funky lights and mean staff, and they would torture me for hours till I escaped. I'm just telling you, in case you go there, you should know. Another thing that began at Cleveland and continued at Grace, my next hospital, where I was for 21 days, is jaw clenching. I remember nothing quite like jaw clenching. The nurses would laugh. They said he hates to get his teeth brushed, 'cause they'd put it in there and I'd bite down on it. And when they'd suction my mouth out, I'd bite down on it. But the truth is, when they weren't there, my mouth would clamp shut on my tongue. It hurt so bad, but I could make no sound. And I couldn't control the clench, so it'd just go on until at some random time I would release. When I arrived at Grace, Amy got a look at my tongue, and it was swollen and infected, and they hadn't been able to see it until then. So we worked on that. At Grace, I was bedridden. Reoccurrence of a stroke was likely. Perhaps the most embarrassing time of the whole ordeal was Grace Hospital. We need to have a little aside. Are there any nursing students? None with us? Well, spread the word. nursing students get way too happy on their first assignment when they have a spit bath to give. That sponge bath took forever. I was freezing. They would chat with each other and gleefully say, "Do you need more soap?" And of course I couldn't say, "Hurry it up." So I let them have their fun. They would cap my trach, try to get me to speak with a passing ear valve. I wanted so badly to tell the janitor, Grace, thank you. She every day happily did her job, perhaps more than anyone else, happily did her job, and spoke so kindly with me, holding a one-way conversation, which isn't easy to do. But I could never get it out on time. They had a Hoyer lift that I used here. A Hoyer lift is like when they put you in a giant sling and swing you around the room, and then decide when you're right and drop you down the chair. Suffice it to say, there should be more training. I learned to stand and pivot. I remember it was such a big achievement. They got so happy when for 5 seconds I sat on the side of the bed without falling over backwards. They thought that was awesome. It's at Grace when I implored God, perhaps more than any other time. I remember praying for hours that my arm would move, just some indication that it wanted to do what I said. It's a really weird feeling when you're thinking move and it just sits there. But more than that, I implored God to find it in His will to let me finish my job with my boys. I went then to a rehab center, Health South, for 9 weeks. They told me day 1, you'll walk out of here. I thought, you've lost your mind. I've come to an insane asylum. They have no idea. I spend my time doing crazy things. One of the craziest things to help with my drunk control is they put a mirror in front of me and put clay balls attached to that mirror all over. And they said, it's really simple. Take them off. This is the guy who sat for 5 seconds without falling over, and they had applauded. I didn't like this new hospital. They didn't appreciate my accomplishments near as much as the old place. I remember I had emotional ability. If you don't know what this is, it's particularly difficult at a rehab because as they trained me, I would have a crying spell for 15 minutes for no reason, only 'cause the stroke hit my emotion center. So they got smart. 'Cause it interrupted rehab, I couldn't do anything when I had a crying spell. So they said, aha, let's medicate him. The dose was a little high, and so I laughed for 15 minutes for no reason. Which, when you're having rehab and you're halfway around the loop and you have a laughing spell, they've got lickety-split, grab a chair and slide it under you, and I'd sit there in the middle of the exercise floor and hoot and holler. And bless my physical therapist's heart, she would hoot and holler right with me. I then had outpatient for 7 more months to fine-tune. So, what you see now is my residual functioning. It's pretty much how I'll be, although things still change. One of the things I must share is some of the good God caused in all this. Folks raised tremendous amounts of money, so I can say we were able to pay for it all and not lose anything. God really blessed us financially. I worked in the school system in the same school with Amy, and those folks from around our whole county had a choice of donating 5 sick days. They donated so many days that Amy and I were off for all of that school year, the remainder, but received a check as though we were working. More than anything, I've grappled with this. In all my efforts in working with churches for the 20 or so years, 25 now probably, don't add that up. In all my efforts to influence, when did God choose to work most powerfully through me. When my only contribution was to sit motionless in a bed, unable to even breathe on my own, yet alert to watch him and learn, to watch the eternal good maker. I hear people say often, I'm not good enough. I'm not able. If I had your talents, I would. But the truth is, God doesn't need ability. He needs availability. That's all he needs. A passage which, well, real briefly, two things I've learned about my supporting role in God's story of love through my crisis. I learned the meaning of Acts 16:25. About midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing psalms or hymns of praise to God, and the prisoners were listening. The prisoners heard how Paul and Silas dealt with their circumstances. They saw a joy that could not be caged up. I tried my best to remain joyful. In fact, to hear my family tell the story, which I don't know exactly how much you can believe. But at one point, after my arms started moving, we had a rudimentary communication board, and I would spell out with letters what I wanted to say, and they'd read it. Real simple. To mix it up, I didn't put in any spaces. That way they'd have to read it biblically. Decide where to divide those words. But before I could type it out, I had to have an outburst of genuine laughter, 'cause I was about to say the funniest thing they'd heard all day, but I couldn't wait to type it to have my fun. So I laugh and then look and say, what's so funny? And then later on, when I finished typing, it wasn't funny anymore. But they'd read it and laugh like it was. I learned the meaning of be still and know that He's God. Perhaps more than any other, I've learned 2 Corinthians 12, 9 through 11. But he said to me, that is God, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. An anthem for my family and me that we heard very shortly after getting out of the hospital was at a Matthew West concert, a song called Strong Enough. The words are these: you must think I'm strong to give me what I'm going through. Well, forgive me. Forgive me if I'm wrong. But this looks like more than I can do on my own. I know I'm not strong enough to be everything I'm supposed to be. I give up. I'm not strong enough. Hands of mercy, won't you cover me? Lord, right now, I'm asking you to be strong enough. Strong enough for the both of us. David asked me to speak, and when he did, he lied to me. He said, we're having this really cool series. I want you to speak in our series called Real God, Real People. Awesome. I was pumped up till this week I looked, and the series was called Unbroken. I can't roll with that title. Unbroken is, well, it's a lie. I don't want to be, as I stand here now, not a few years ago, but now. I don't want to be unbroken, because in my brokenness, God uses me. And so I can say now, this has been a stroke of blessing. I wouldn't have chosen it, but in my poor choices, I would have missed out on God's richest blessings. Let's pray together. Father, thanks for being with us, for really being with us. not in this place only, but in our lives, in the dark places of our lives. Father, help us now that in our brokenness, your strength will shine unlike any other time. In our brokenness, we find true strength. Help us, Father, to take off the mask and embrace our brokenness together. There's a song, Father, that reflects my heart. May we, Father, find it in ourselves to be broken together. We thank you that you are the eternal good maker. And we pray, Father, that we would see your good in every circumstance. In Jesus' name, amen. My legs are tight.
All right, guys. Thank y'all for. I think all of us have been through difficult times. You, a loved one, a friend, whatever it is, and and every once in a while you need to be reminded how good God is, even through the mess.